Because you said even though you didn't have a lot of rain, you still had...
For some reason we could always, even in the bad years we had, but we had to take care of them, you know. They had to be healed, you know, so they kept the moisture in, you know, and we had, see, and we had, my mother had a brother and they had 9 kids, I guess, or 8, and, or 10, anyhow, and Ma was always saving potatoes for them. They always, every year they got a sack of potatoes from us. I think they would. And we us kids we could say, why don't they raise their own potatoes? Why do we have to? You know, as kids, you know, you want to know what this was all about. Well, we found out later on, they just, I don't know, they never made their kids. I can't believe that they couldn't have planted potatoes and had them cultivated like they do corn. They had corn sometimes. See, we always had corn, so they got cultivated while they were little.
Mm-hmm.
If they got bigger, then we had but then we had to keep the grass out in between, and we used to crawl. We used to have to crawl along the line. And that was our 4th of July doings before we could go to the 4th of July, so it was a good way of getting us going.
So bread baking day, what did you have one day where you baked bread? And
I never baked bread before I left home. That was, you know, my mom's always, she was always there. My mom didn't leave very, she never went on vacation or anything. She didn't like to.
She did the bread baking.
She did the bread baking, yeah.
How many loaves of bread? Do you remember how many loaves you guys ate in a week?
I usually about between 8 and 10 loaves. Now when we had threshers or something, you know, then she'd have to bake more, but that usually took us. And then we always had noodles that day, or fried bread and bean soup. That was the big thing, you know, bean soup and noodles. That was always a meal. That was it. And but we loved it. She could cook good. She cooked good.
What are some of the other things that you remember that she cooked for you? Because you obviously didn't have, like, you didn't run to town and buy groceries.
Well, we had to have some, you know, your sugar and flour and coffee and those stuff. The basics you had to still buy, you know. And but there used to be an elevator in Tenwick. And they used to, and my dad used to load a load of wheat, take it over, you know, there, and I don't know what kind of an elevator, you know, they must have had all the equipment. And he'd come home with flour. He had whole wheat flour, and you know, in exchange, whatever. We never found out how they did it because we were kids and we forgot to ask. And then he'd have and we'd have Ma would have flour in they'd come in big sacks. Towards last they were towards the last they were in material, and she made us make us little. We were small, you know. She could make dresses and blooms to match. And they were cute. That was, and then we were. I mean, people thought that was really something, you know. And we had, but anyhow, you know, it was something that we had a neighbor lady. She couldn't sew. How she raised her kids, I don't know, because my mother patched all our pants. You know, even we usually didn't eat. We usually didn't wear patch pants for school, but we always had. Then we'd have other pair underneath, maybe a patched hair, and then we'd leave them on there, you know. But because, you know, that was.
We were talking about your root cellar and the fact that the walls were dirt.
Yeah.
Down there. And you put potatoes down there. And do you remember anything else that you stored down there?
Oh yeah, Mom put on, you know, all her she made a barrel of watermelon. Put a barrel down there for The hole wasn't very big. The barrel just fit through, you know. And then she, of course, towards last it was bigger, but anyhow, she made sour watermelons, chipped watermelons down there, and there was a guy that grew them. We couldn't, you know, you can't put them. You have to kind of separate them. The ones that are good for pickling, and the other ones, they will get sour too, you know, but they stay firmer. Those, what do they call them? Aimoch Milana. Aimoch means pickle. Pickle, melon, pickle, watermelon.
And you pickled them whole, right?
Yeah.
And do you remember what you poured over them? The brine that you used? Can you?
Yeah. The brine that Mom made, she took a pail of water, and then she put water in there, and she put salt in there till an egg floated. That was her recipe. An egg or a potato, but she usually, a potato, well, it depends on the size of the potato. You know, otherwise it wouldn't, you know, it would take more for it to, what you say. Anyhow, the egg floated before the potato. Well, it was heavier, I'm sure.
So then there was lots of salt in the water, and
she put salt in until that egg would float.
Okay.
That was the measurement. Then she put a lot of your dill, a lot of dill, and you know, that's like pickling spice. That was it. Dill, and that's all I can remember.
Did you do pickles like that also in barrels? Like cucumbers in barrels like that too, or just the watermelon?
Oh, we didn't. It was too big. I mean, it was pickled. We had fun with pickles. My mom had a little pickle barrel, a wooden one with them, you know, pleats around them, you know, like we have. You can make your dress with pleats, you know. Not pleats, just pieces put together, you know, but shaped bigger in the bottom a little bit than on top. You know, that's the way them barrels were made. And she would make them a little one like that, and she would make pickles and leave them out in where we separated, where it was warm, so they'd get sweet. When it's warm, they get pickled faster.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they do. And there's, well, in the summertime, naturally, it's hotter, you know. And then we'd sneak over there, and we were always eating pickles. We'd sneak in there, and she knew that was happening, you know. Then she'd add a little bit, then she'd put some more pickles in there, you know. And sometimes you got a green one, but, oh, they were good out of that barrel. Oh, they were just a little bit not quite so sour, you know. They were good. Boy, would I would like a pickle. Like
so you mentioned that they were in the, where you separated the cream? Is that what you said? That you had, that's where she kept that pickle barrel? So you must have had cows that you milked?
Oh yeah, we always milked by hand, as long as I was there.
How many cows do you remember?
The most we milked one time was 12 or 14. That was in the middle of the summer, you know, when cows come in like in April or something. And then they would give like quite a bit of milk till about fall, in the early fall, you know, I would say. Some of them wouldn't last that long, you know. It depends on the cow, how good the cow was. You know, some like your Holsteins or the male cow. What do you call them? Type, that's the word. And then your Herefords, they usually they were more their beef, you know, for butchering, you know, for meat.
What'd you do with all the milk? You couldn't have used milk from all those cows in your family. Did you sell it?
No, we separated it. Well, we separated and then we sold the cream. But the milk we carried all over for the pigs. Poured it in the pig trough, and a lot of times we carried it. Us girls, we didn't want to wait till the boys come to. Don't put that down, but we didn't want to wait till the boys come and take it over there, so we'd carry it over so we could wash the pails. We couldn't wash the pails until the milk was out of there. And then my one brother, he was great at that. He would sit in that can and just wait till we were done, and then he'd because he knew we had, and we usually wanted to go to town on Sunday nights, or Saturday and Sundays there was movies. And then we would get, a lot of times we can't, before my brothers were old enough to drive a car, that the folks would give them the car. And because there was just only one family car, there was no 2 cars to a family. And then we usually, what was I going to say?
Go to the movies.
Oh, yeah, Saturday nights we do.
Did you go into Strasbourg or Linton or
Strasbourg usually?
Okay. So you had lots of chickens. So you had lots of eggs.
No, we didn't have that many chickens. We just had a small. And in the wintertime they didn't lay that much, in the wintertime. In the summertime, then in the spring they'd really start because they were going to brood, hatch them out. And that I did too, when they want to raise, sit on the eggs, and they have to sit in there 3 weeks, You have to take them out of the chicken coop, put them in a different little shed or something, so they're alone, because otherwise the other ones will sit in and keep laying eggs. Well, the eggs have to all be incubated at the same time. So if they keep getting new eggs, well, they won't get done, but the other ones are done. So it was interesting. Then if you took the eggs away, and then they still wanted to brood, to have chicken. So then you had to have a place to lock them up for a few days so they get over that, so they start laying again. Did you ever hear about that? Yeah. Yeah, we had to do that. We had to catch them, and they'd peck us sometimes. I'd reach under and take them by the feet and take them out of the nests, Then we'd carry them, put them in that house. We had an extra little house. It wasn't too big, but enough for about 8, 9 hens, And sometimes we used to dunk them in the tank. And we'd laugh because they looked so silly when they come out of there. We had more fun doing that. That's about the things you had fun with on the farm, which was supposed to be, but you had fun. Yeah, that was...
So did you butcher chickens? Like, did you have one day where you butchered a bunch of chickens? Or, because you ate chickens too, right? Not just their eggs, but...
Well, they usually bought Ma would... She'd go to hatchery and she'd take them that didn't hatch, that had the incubating time was over. And if they weren't out the first or second day, then they threw them, So she would get, the hatchery would, I don't know if she had to pay, I don't think she had to pay for anything for them. She just got them. And then she, then she had she had a brooder for a while. Where she had her own brooder, was about this wide and this long, where she put the eggs in and then she had chicks come out, That was interesting when they started popping out, Like the hen, we couldn't watch that well because we couldn't get a little chicken because they would peck you, But when I was, I was little, my sister tells me I was just, she doubts if I was 9 months maybe. I could walk already, she said, because I could go fast enough that the clock wouldn't get me. See, I had to go fast enough, and that's what happened. And they had to watch me all the time because I would, that's one of my first memories. I would, the clock wouldn't move that fast because she knew the chickens couldn't follow her. So I had to be fast enough to get a chicken before she gets to me. So then while I was getting away from her, I was squeezing this chicken so it wouldn't get away. I can almost feel it. And I remember that. And they had to watch me. My oldest sister says she still remembers it. They had to watch me. Because I wanted to hold them.
Annie, did your mother ever put up vegetables from the garden?
Oh yeah. All the pickles were put up. And when we butchered, we would can sausage after butchering. We'd also can sausage. I did that when we were married yet. When I was married yet, I did that.
And then did they store that in the root cellar?
Yep.
Okay.
After it's canned. Yeah.
And then there must have been. Did you do sauerkraut by the barrel like you did pickled watermelon?
Sauerkraut. But I never did it. I put it in the char.
Mm-hmm.
Put it in real tight. And then put a teaspoon of salt in it. And then just put a little bit of water in. Well, you had to cover it because it would turn yellow. So you had a lot of, cabbage. When it gets sour, it gets smaller.
Mm-hmm.
So you had a lot of chews in the char. And then sometimes they'd put it in a barrel. You're right. Sometimes they'd put it in a barrel. Then they'd take it out and put it in the char.
Okay.
Because you couldn't eat it all. After a while the kids would get, it would get too much. They had to kind of cook while the season was there. Cook it when the season was there, Nowadays, you can go anytime you want sauerkraut. They make some good sauerkraut nowadays. There's one that's, the heck did they call it? But it's so good. It's just almost like the old-fashioned stuff.
Oh.
What do they call it?
What did you usually eat with sauerkraut?
Usually spare ribs. Spare ribs and sauerkraut goes together. Oh, and then she'd make noodles and put sauerkraut on top. That was good. And she made noodles without baking. She had a recipe for just, the heck did it take? Well, it was just baking powder and flour and I think egg. I think they had to put egg in there. But she usually made them out of the bread dough. See, when she made bread there, that's where the noodles come in. And she'd make it, and sometimes she'd let them, nowadays they just take them off of they have these machines now, so they get the dough different, Because those days they had to wait till all the yeast, would make the dough go, and it had to be placed pretty warm, and, well, not real warm, but in between medium. And so that's how, then she'd make noodles. And then she put the sauerkraut on top, But not too much. Your dough noodles, they were more fluffy.
Mm-hmm.
Then the sauerkraut was too heavy. Then make the dough not right. But with the dough from the dough from the bread dough, that we always had when we were a family, Every time we had, when we were out of bread, that we very seldom bought bread. She always baked. And then she would, now I forgot my trail of thought again.
It had something to do with bread baking and noodles and what you made out of that.
Yeah, them real fluffy noodles from the bread dough, they got so fluffy, So she would cook either prunes or raisins. And then you put the raisins or prunes in your dish and you dunk the noodle in there. Oh, was that good. That was good. I haven't had that. But that, you know, that's, some people, they order some bread from the bakery, and they go home and they make them noodles. And I guess they turn out,
Like uptown, this bakery here, just get the bread dough from them? Well, that's interesting.
Yeah, you can get bread dough from you, but you got to tell them ahead of time,
Right.
so they'll save it for you. I seen the other day where one of them was erased quite a bit already, but that didn't matter if she ordered I think they must weigh them when they're just the dough. That's the only way they could
Sell it by the pound then, huh?
Yeah. I know the bakery does it here.
So how about nifla soup? That wasn't something that people made back then, was it?
Nifla soup. What was nifla soup? Oh, that's made out of from dough. They make them in, I think our restaurant over here makes them sometimes.
Did you used to make it at home? Did your mother make it?
Yeah, nifla soup. That was, I don't know how, I used to make it too. It's got cornstarch in it. Not cornstarch, baking powder. Baking powder in it. And that she made by hand. We could never, my sister says too. She made such good stuff, but she just does it by the hand. So we don't know.
So are you telling me you don't have any recipes from your mother?
Oh, we have some recipes. I mean, she sent some recipes in the churches made books. Then she sent some of her recipes.
How about Coogan? Did you guys make Coogan?
Oh, yeah.
The fat or the skinny kind?
Well, the fat usually went with when you made bread dough. As a rule, I always made mine with the bread dough, you know. I always made the cook. If I had some fruit that didn't get, the kids were tired of eating, or apples, cut them, slice them, and then you put egg and cream and, on top of the apple. You put some, sugar you have to put in. Sugar you usually. You put the cream, little bit of cream and egg on top, and then you put the sugar and spread it on top. When you add a little bit brown sugar, it's really get good. You can't bake all the time because you.
I know. I hate that. That's why they had so many kids and they got to bake all they wanted.
Yeah.
They had someone to eat it for them. How about choke cherries? Do you remember picking choke cherries or anything wild fruits so that you could have
choke cherry jelly? Oh, I made choke cherry jelly galore. Every year, we never run out.
Where'd you get the choke cherries from?
Well, where I lived when I got married. We lived right by the river, so we just went and picked them. Now they got it all goofed up. There's nothing down there anymore.
Yeah, that's sad. I can't find choke cherry trees either. Like they used to be everywhere, and now.
And now there's a few of them left. By the time they're ripe, the birds eat them all.
Yep.
I seen a tree the other day and I thought, well, for crying out loud. I was thinking maybe I could get a few cherries off of there. 1, 2 cherries on a. Oh, boy, it's just you can't believe how things change. It just.
So you guys didn't have running water.
No.
So where'd you get the water from?
We carried it in from the well.
And how about on laundry day? Did you have to carry water in?
In the summertime, we'd go down to a neighbor. He had a dam, and it would fill up, and then the water was nice, So we'd go down there and put some barrels on a trailer, and we'd back the trailer in there. That was when I never did it, the boys did that. And you'd back it in there, and then you'd fill it up, and then you'd pull it out, then you'd take it home, and then usually a barrel would pretty well be enough to fill the washing machine. Well, you had the washer and the rinse, sometimes she, and of course when it rains you save the water.
Oh, okay. How did you save rainwater?
Coming off of the roof of the house, you know.
Just in big barrels?
Yeah. I still save, I still wash, I still save my water that comes down. Sometimes I run back and forth because I got a drain laying over here. And I figured, I wonder what Ben and Delphine think about me. But for the houseplant, oh, they just love it.
I know, it's just nothing like it, right?
Last winter, they just, when I gave, and I think there must have been something in the snow. I melted snow, you know. And I think there must have been something in the air that was giving them a boost. But they just went nuts. I couldn't believe that they were laying down on the side, you know, on the rim, you know. And about an hour later, I looked in and they were up. They lifted up. I couldn't believe it.
Oh, gosh, that's great.
Those are experiences, I'll tell you, that just knock you, you know. You just can't believe what you see. And it's happening today in this world. You know, that never happened before.
So you didn't have ice or a refrigerator. How did you keep things from spoiling?
Oh. And even out even where I grew up, they had they call it in Churn, Hof. Hof means yard. They had a yard, they had a yard cellar, they would call it. Yard cellar, you know. In German it's Hofkeller. And that's where we put our stuff, and that was really deep. You had to go, that was deep. And in the winter time, what they did, they went wherever there was a lake and it froze solid enough to drive on. They had ice sauce, and they cut ice blocks. And then they'd bring them home, and then they'd put them planks down the steps, and they had tongs to hold the blocks. Remember how they looked?
Mm-hmm.
Ice, what they call them, I remember now what they call them. Anyhow, there's ice tongs to hold the blocks. Because they have to get them out of the river, you know. I don't know how they get them out of there. That's so dangerous, you know. And then they bring them home and they slide them down there. And down there they pack them and they put straw around them. They pack straw around them to keep them. And we'd have ice till, we'd go down there, we'd make ice cream. You know, we'd have old-fashioned ice cream makers. And or else, most of the time we took it up because it got too cold down there. You can't leave the door open, you know, or else it melts, you know, but we had, and sometimes we'd have ice till July 4th.
That's just amazing to me.
That would stay like that long. Yeah, and that was...
Do you remember what grains that you raised or grew or farmed? What kind of a farmer was your dad?
A wheat farmer. Wheat that I can remember. Wheat was the basic. And barley. And oats.
Did he use horses to farm, or did he have, I don't know what else you...
Yeah, from the start. I used to plow. I know, we used horses to do them. Not forever, you know, but I know I got married in, was I even married? 45. And then I'm thinking that did Harry still farm by horses? I know I plowed with a plow. And my sister Betty says she did too, so we must have in 45 we still plowed where we had horses hooked up. Wow. So that was quite an experience, horse harness. Them horses had so many brains. They were so smart. It's almost impossible. When I look at a horse now, I cannot believe it. What they, that they didn't run away. And of course, I suppose it happened sometimes. But, we had rocks on our farmland, and you'd go along, and pretty soon, and them horse got so smart. Just as soon as they'd crack the plow lace, hit a rock or something, then they'd sit, then they'd stop. Because if it was too bad, then if you usually went around it, but if you missed one, they would, the moisture would push them up. There's something in the earth that makes them rocks. I didn't know that until later on now, that makes them come up. We used to say that things grow, but we didn't know what took place. But then you'd have to go around them, or if you'd go over it, sometimes they'd get stuck in between the plow lace. Then you'd have a heck of a time getting them out of there, And I know a lot of times I had problems. Then my brother Harry, he would come and lift up the plow. He was so strong as a man, and so it would move when the horses. So it could get through when the horses started pulling, And the horses were so smart too. Whenever like I said, whenever it starts cracking, that they know, then they'd stop, And my brother always said, my dad always said, and if they have to go potty, you stop and let them go do their thing, and then you go again. So we listened what he told us. We listened because he was smarter than we.
What were some of the other things that you maybe heard repeatedly growing up, or like good German sayings?
Oh, good sayings. Pass auf is one of them.
And that means?
Be careful. Only it hasn't, In German, it's just got two. In English, in German, it's pass auf. In English, be careful. It's one word, but it's got two. Just don't sound the same, It just.
How about work makes life sweet? Did you ever hear that from your parents? Yeah. Could you say that for me?
I don't know if I ever heard it in German. Schaffen mocht, leben sies. Schaffen mocht des Leben sies.
So why do you think they said that? Did they ever explain what that meant?
Work makes life sweet. I don't know, and you still see it. I seen it the other day again. I mean...
They're hard-working people, weren't they?
But what did they mean? Well, I can see, a sense, that it keeps you occupied. So you're not, sitting and going in this, whatever you want to call it, See, when people those days sat around, didn't do anything, they were sick. There was something, either they physically couldn't or didn't know how mentally. Don't you think? See, so through that thinking, if you work, it's not always true, but you have a better outlook. It isn't sweet a lot of times, but it's an outlook. It doesn't keep you in a still position, where you could lose it,
Did your mom ever do any crocheting or needlework of any, some fancy work?
No, she never did. She always sewed. She always patched. She patched for, she was the oldest of 12. So at home already she was patched. She did. She said that's where she learned. She said nobody ever showed her. She said, well, I just sat down and put a patch on. I suppose she had to figure out how to you know, put it on, and then how to put around the outside, you know, so keep the patch on there. And I know our bloomers, well, she just, my sister told me the other day that when she used to sew, well, when people found out that she sews, then they'd bring their material to her. And my sister was telling me she used to, when they'd come and bring a piece of material, then she'd take the Amos County paper, hold it up to them, and cut a piece of that for a pattern. I said, I never knew that. But I said, it's possible. They probably didn't, you know, in them days, I don't suppose anybody really was so particular because there was seamstress all over. So if she made some mistakes, I suppose, you know, she tried. She put ruffles on skirts, you know, and she did just about. But I suppose she learned through working, because she was a seamstress, well, without a doubt, because she taught all of us. All you had to do is, of course, she had us at the machine right away too. Whatever, I know she started me out on pillowcases. See, that was nothing to it. You hem them, and pillowcases came from, like I said, they used to get flour in pillowcases. So she'd make pillowcases too with them, and bloomers and stuff with them. So that was, you know, they saved wherever they could. No wonder they made it. When I went to school yet, they used to get, Teresa reminded me of that too, and I says, they used to have, they had what NYA they called it. And they would hire, you know, a lot of, when they graduated from high school to 8th grade, they didn't go to high school. They had no transportation, you know, and you know. So that's when NYA came in. So they hired these gals, some gals that were, and they had to qualify. If their folks had money enough, they could work. You know, it's just like now. Even then they had these government programs written. I thought, God, I didn't know that. They were government programs, you know, but they had to be. And then they'd hire 2 gals that were old enough, so done with school, and they would come to the school under this NYA. They got, God, she said too what they got, very little. And then they'd cook this, then they'd give commodities to schools. And I don't know who got it or how they got it to the schools. I think the teachers had it from, I don't know, I don't remember. Anyhow, and then they would, and they had them big stoves, you know. Them, put the protection around them. And they'd put the potatoes somewhere, Teresa told me to where, underwear close to where it was hot. And they could cook a potato under there. And then they'd have somewhere or other, there's a place on the stove where they can put them, where they could cook prunes. Them ladies, you know, they hired them to certain days when they had enough commodities, I suppose, or whatever. Then they'd have them ladies.